Good evening. We'll begin with Pledge of Allegiance. I invite you to join us. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Kolpak? Here. Pepcorn?
Here.
Preston? Here. Strand?
Here.
Mahoney?
Here. Health. August is the National Immunization Awareness Month, a great time to make sure your kids are up to date with important vaccinations before school starts. Fargo Cass Public Health will host a walk-in immunization clinics on August 23rd and August 24th from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. All recommended child and teen immunizations will be available for the public. Library. School supply bingo sessions for school-age children will be August 22nd at 11 a.m. in the North Part Library and 2 p.m. in the main library. The Chess Club meets every main library Tuesdays from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. as open to all interested chess players. Beginner yoga sessions for adults are Thursdays at 6 p.m. at the Carlson Library. The 2023 Northern Focus Photography exhibit will be on display in the downtown main library starting September 1st. Is there a motion to approve the order of the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, before we do that, I'd like to raise a point of order here, if possible.
Okay.
We've had rules in place for, well, as long as I've been on the commission, that agenda items should include background information as well as a recommended motion or just an indication it's for information only. We've had a lot of conversations in our retreat sessions about that particular item as well. And it's just not real clear when we look at the rules how to deal with it. Now, I don't know, item number 41 does not have any background information with it. Wondering, in my mind, that shouldn't have even been on the agenda, but wondering what the process is for dealing with that kind of ongoing issue.
You make a good point. At the retreat, we have talked about policy, and to get that policy, unfortunately, we have not brought the new policy forward, which is in every type of agenda item. One should have either a written note and or a request to who would be giving the report. Commissioner Pickbarn has not told me which directors he wanted to give a report, so right now we don't have anything prepared. If you want to delay that 2 weeks, then you can tell me which directors you want to report on that, Commissioner Pickbarn. That'd be reasonable, but I don't know who you want to report on.
No, Mr. Chair, I did not want to report, just wanted some discussion, so that's all. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, let
Mr.
me
Preston?
clarify, even though we've been talking about it more recently, it has been part of our rules since a long time ago. So.
Mr. Chair,
what
I
would
disagree. This is
suggest-
not a part
and,
of our rules.
Excuse me, it is still point of order. What I would suggest is that we somehow figure out how to deal with these, that they do not even get on the agenda, I would suggest.
Any further discussion? And how would you like item 41 handled today?
I would make a motion to approve the agenda, removing item number 41.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, so
Pickbarn.
what would that be based on?
Preston?
So if you look at the rules of conduct, I can actually read it to you. Let's see. Any items or issues which have not qualified for the regular agenda under the rules as stated above, or any new and timely issues which arise after preparation, with the consent of a majority of the city commissioners who are present and voting, be considered as an extra item. So it is possible that with a motion to actually add it as an extra item, we can do that. My motion is to remove it.
Further discussion? Commissioner Strand?
Thank you. Commissioner Preston, I believe we do have policies in place about when you advance a topic to place on the agenda. our internal discussions and policy, I believe, is to provide a memo and provide a recommended motion so the public can hear this. This weekend, I heard from a citizen who said there's an agenda item from Commissioner Preston, there's an agenda item from Commissioner Strand, there's an agenda item from Commissioner Pepcorn, and an agenda item from Commissioner Kolpak. And they said one of them doesn't even have any explanation what it is. And the rest of you provided a document explaining what the topic is. This is just from a citizen saying, what's going on? Are these different rules? Do some people have different rules than others, or what? And I think the policy is what should drive us, frankly.
Commissioner Kolpak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually will support this removal as well. Not only is it fair to the public to have advance notice and understand the topic to be discussed, but more important, and even as importantly, it's important for the staff to know the topic to be discussed and be prepared. Thank you.
Item 40 probably will answer many of the questions that brought up in 94-1, so I think that may answer many of those questions. And if we go back to protocol, Commissioner Pepcorn's welcome to give us a letter of what he wants next meeting, which could be done at that time. Roll call vote, please.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Kolpak? Aye. Pepcorn?
No.
Mahoney?
Aye. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the August 7th, 2023 meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 30?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Strand?
Yes.
Preston?
Aye.
Kolpak? Aye. Pepcorn?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. Regular agenda, resident comments. Christina Klinghammer is up first.
Okay, so basically I'm here to discuss the LED street lighting. And I mean, as everybody knows, as of August 1st, there was a federal ban on incandescent light bulbs. So basically I just wanted to discuss the fact that I don't know if anybody else has noticed, but the color temperature for our streetlights has gotten significantly whiter, or even in some neighborhoods, like closer to a purple spectrum. So as far as what an LED light bulb is, it's a blue light source with a yellow layer of phosphorus, which produces an artificial white light. This light has a flicker and needs a diffuser, but if you look up at these LED streetlights, there's no diffuser there. There's no lens blocking this. This causes macular degeneration, cataracts, and ultimately blindness. Also, it produces or induces the body's sepsis state or degradation state, and suppresses the production of melatonin in the brain by 5 times the amount of an incandescent light bulb. So I just think that we need to be taking more preventative measures to protect our eyesight. Is it really worth the money savings from causing potentially blindness? And I'll just end there.
Thank you. Faith Dixon.
Good afternoon, or good evening, Commissioners. At the last Commission meeting, I witnessed Commissioner Strand ask for updates and transparency about the Liquor Control Board. It was stated that if the people were interested in any updates to attend that meeting. Well, I did just that. What I witnessed is political abuse and the deliberate misuse of political position for the benefit of power and the use of it for institutional discrimination and maltreatment of marginalized groups. I hear all of you say Fargo is far more, but we still have public boards that are not diverse and led by those who have shown themselves to be biased and one of a dictator. The positions that you have been elected by the citizens should be used to bring positive change within the city of Fargo. Just like other government bodies, this board needs checks and balances to make sure that abuse of power, corruption, fear, and control of information is not happening. If we're going to piece this community back together, then its leaders must remember that the authority given to you by the people is to protect the rights of our constituents, not to abrogate them. You can't continue to turn a blind eye because we have all witnessed racism, discrimination, and pure ignorance from one or more individuals on this panel. It is also your job to keep each other accountable when you do witness these things happening. Thank you.
Kathy Polanski.
Good evening. I know that there's an item on the agenda set for a public hearing regarding the building at 1449 4th Avenue South, but I wanted to bring to light some additional information. There is a sign on the structure currently that it's deemed unsafe and occupancy is prohibited. But in addition to that, there have been many issues of concern for the neighbors that happen to be that reside in that area. There was a garage fire in January of this year. The structure has flyers on there that it needs to be repaired. No attempt has been made, and people have been seen exiting and entering that building. There's a history of housing sex offenders there. In addition to several children residing in the neighborhood, there's also a daycare nearby, as well as it being 2 blocks away from the Jefferson Elementary School and less than 1 block from the Nexus Path Luther Hall. There were associates of the homeowner that were squatting in an abandoned home at 1433 4th Avenue South. In that home, they found syringes, and we were told by police over $5,000 worth of stolen tools. It was not confirmed by the police, but I witnessed individuals that were the squatters leaving the home, and they went to the residence at 1449 4th Avenue South. Also, belongings left at 1433 4th Avenue South were spotted at the home located at 1449 4th Avenue South. On August 7th, there was a man impaired and obviously under the influence of some sort of a drug, was pacing around and dancing on the boulevard and into the yard. The police were called twice. There have been several calls to our dispatch to report shouting and profane language coming from inside that home. And as citizens, we just wanted to make sure that something was being done regarding that for our safety and the safety of the children. Thank you.
Thank you. Wes Philome.
Wes Philome, he, him, his pronouns. I'd like to start by saying happy birthday to my brother Mike. It was you who taught me to never remain silent, especially when it comes to things that go against your beliefs. Thank you for being a big part of who I am today. As supposed leaders in this life, we are not judged by how we treat those who are doing the best. We in fact are judged by how we treat the people who are not at their best. With that being said, we have a city leader who has unjustly targeted new American people seeking asylum in our community after experiencing unbelievable traumas. That same city commissioner has also targeted our indigenous community by propagating racist stereotypes as well. At the last city commission meeting, he argued for the discontinuation of critical services afforded to those battling mental health, drug addiction, and extreme poverty. He has continued to leverage his seat within this commission to cause undue harm on vulnerable people in our community, and he has brought national shame to this commission time and time again. If not for Deputy Mayor Preston, Commissioner Strand, and Kopak, this man would never face any consequences for his action. Tonight, he has once again requested to speak on the vulnerable population downtown. The last time this occurred, his words caused quite the harm to so many in Fargo. How will it go tonight? Who will stand up and speak on behalf of those who are unable to speak for themselves? We deserve city leaders that operate in the best interest of its people, not just the majority, and especially not for themselves. We deserve city leaders who not only stand up for what is right, but stand against what is wrong. The conversation tonight surrounding our downtown will tell a lot about who you are as leaders. I look forward to seeing this play out. Thank you.
Item 32, application for a Class GH alcoholic beverage license for Five Star African Cuisine, doing business as Five Star African Cuisine, to be located at 855 45th Street South, Suite 1A. It was continued from the 6/26 meeting. Steve Sprague to explain.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Tonight, we have a GH, which is a beer and wine in a restaurant where the food sales have to exceed the alcohol sales, and the service of the alcohol has to be at a table or booth. This was continued from a previous hearing date. The application that we got was not complete, and so we had sent it back to be reapplied and re-reviewed. It did come back. We've gone through the background check, and it comes to you with a recommendation of approval from the Liquor Control Board.
Does anyone wants to speak to this application? Anybody wanting to speak? If not, I close public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Public hearing 33, application for license GH alcoholic beverage license from HHM LLC, doing Taya, India, to be located at 2877 45th Street South, Suite 100. Steve Sprague to explain.
And again, a GH, so it's the same as the license before. Beer and wine, table service, food sales must exceed alcohol sales. We've done the background check on this applicant, and it comes to you with a recommended approval from Liquor Control Board.
Does anyone present wish to speak to this application? Anybody wishing to speak? We'll close public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Public hearing for application of Class GH license for Michelle's Table, to be doing business as Michelle's Table, to be located at 1414 12th Avenue North. Steve Sprague to explain.
And this is up on the, just south of the NDSU campus there. It's going to be like European themed, French bistro kind of thing. And it does, we've gone through the background check, again, comes to you with a recommendation of approval from the Liquor Control Board.
Anybody present who wishes to speak to this application? Anybody wanting to speak? Not, I'll close public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item 35, application for transfer of license Z alcoholic beverage license from the Noble to the Noble Smokehouse, to be located at 609 NP Avenue. Ownership change only. Steve Sprague to explain.
Yes, sir. So this one, it's not a GH, right? This is a full alcohol license. The Z does not require that you serve food, but in this case, obviously they do. When we first issued this license, there were four partners involved in the business. Two of the partners are leaving the business. The other two are picking up the remaining stock. And so it continues with the same ownership, just two less people involved in it. I've done the background check on the remaining owners, and it does come to you with a recommendation of approval from the Liquor Control Board.
Who are the new owners, please?
It's Rosemary Ackley and Warren Ackley. They're the two that are staying in the business.
Thank you. Is anyone present who wishes to speak to this transfer? Anyone wanting to speak? If not, I have closed the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Public hearing, Wentz edition, approval recommended by Planning Commission on 8/1/23. A zoning change from single dwelling residential to single dwelling residential, SR3. First reading of the rezoning ordinance. Donald LaCrest to explain.
Good evening, Good evening, Commissioners. Donald Kress of the Department of Planning and Development. I'll be presenting the next two items. Both of these items include an ordinance prepared by the City Attorney's Office. Also note that item 38 is requested to be continued to October. Our first item here, as the mayor has stated, is Wentz Edition zone change. This is located on a rare corner of two streets, 22nd Street South and 18th Street South. It's a single-family residence. These photos show the site here. This is 18th Street. This would be 22nd Street. This photo here notes there's a shed here that seems to match the house, but it's actually a separate building. And then just looking at the other direction at the backyard there. The current zoning here is SR2, single dwelling residential. Note that the lighter or paler yellow here is SR3, which is the proposed zone to be changed to. The applicant requests this change. He's the owner. Requests this change to make an addition to his existing home. This house was built in 1983 under the older code, so the setbacks were different then, and they are somewhat more restrictive now in the SR2 zone. It used to be the old R1A zone. So he's asked for a rezone to the SR3 zone that'll make his existing residence more conforming with the setbacks and also maybe allow a little flexibility for future development. Staff has not received public inquiries or comment on this. The applicant, the owner, was not able to attend the meeting this evening, but our case planner, Brad Garcia from the Planning Department, is here with some more background on that if you have additional questions. This just shows how the house fits in the SR2 zone existing and how it, with the setbacks, would make it fit better in the SR3 zone. So we're making it more conforming. Planning Commission's recommendation is stated in your staff report and shown on the screen. That concludes staff's presentation. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, Donald. Does anyone present wish to speak to this rezoning? Anyone present wish to speak? If not, I'll close public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Kolpack?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye.
Mayor, might I just ask a quick question? Have we shifted, now we have 9 members on the Planning Commission, and it used to be 6 or 7?
Well, sir, there are actually 11.
Okay.
So there are 3 of our appointed by Cass County to represent the ETJ. At present, we only have 1 member represented by Cass County. So that's why it's in the past several reports you've gotten, the total is 9, but there's actually 11 slots.
Thank you, Donald.
And then sometimes commissioners are absent, so it's a different, so we try to account for that in our recommendations.
Item 37, University South 4th Edition, is approval recommended by Planning Commission 7623, zoning change from MR3 to a MR3 multi-dwelling residential with conditional overlay and a general commercial with a CO conditional overlay. First reading of the rezoning ordinance and a plat of the University South 4th Edition. Donald Kress to explain this one.
Thank you, Mayor. The location here, for those of you who remember the old Kmart, that's right down here, University Drive, I-94, 25th Street and Oak Manor Avenue, or 25th Avenue South, rather, and Oak Manor Avenue. This part here is a replat of Lot 1, Block 1, University South 2nd Edition. And this is Beyond Shelter Housing is the applicant here. So they're requesting 2 things here. That shows the site. Beyond Shelter, of course, is an affordable housing developer. They have a facility under construction here. You're on Oak Manor Avenue looking south. And then on 25th Avenue looking north, this area over here is the detention basin for this development. And this is new construction. This is on the adjacent property. That's not part of our subject property here. The zoning here is all MR3, multi-dwelling residential with a conditional overlay, which was applied at the time the original subdivision, University South 2nd, was created. The applicant proposes to break this up into 2 lots. The larger lot here, Lot 1, will be where the MR3, the residential, is, and this smaller lot, Lot 2, is proposed to be rezoned to general commercial with a conditional overlay to match the existing adjacent commercial overlay, and that is where Beyond Shelter is going to develop their offices. Apparently they currently rent and would like to build a building to have as their base. And this shaded area here shows the access easement that allows access to Lot 2, which does not actually touch the street. We don't do that too often, but as long as we have some, an easement with agreement between the property owners, we can make that happen. This appears in your staff report here, in Mr. Garcia's staff report. Just shows a couple changes in the conditional overlay, modifications to make this work a little better on that site. These are to the commercial overlay, not to the residential overlay. And the applicant, Representative Brian Pattengale of Houston Engineering is with us this evening. May wish to address the commission. The Planning Commission's motion is stated in your staff report and shown on the screen, and that concludes staff's presentation on this one. Thank you, Commissioner.
How many low-income housing will they have in this project?
I don't know that number, sir. Mr. Garcia, do you know that number? Looks like between 32 and 42, sir.
Thank you. So anybody wants to speak to this zoning change? Anybody wanting to speak? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
So move. Oh, second.
Strand
And then I have a
started
question.
it. Preston, Sanders. Any dis-
Don, I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Preston, go ahead.
So Donald, this residential building is not a mixed-use building? It's just residential?
I believe it is entirely residential. Is that correct, Mr. Patton? I'll have the applicant's representative answer that.
I assumed it was mixed use when I was reading the information, so.
Good evening, Commissioners. Brian Pattengale with Houston Engineering. Correct. The current apartment building is straight residential units. There is no mixed use. The separate lot that is being split off will be
Gotcha.
office.
And when you started this, you were going to have quite a few apartments, right? When we first started looking at putting in Beyond Shelter in this location?
Correct. Initially, there were more units. Some of their funding did not come through. Obviously, they're low income, so they have a lot of grant work that comes through. Some of their grants did not come through, so this project was scaled back a little bit from the initial larger apartment complex.
And just for the public to know, the city of Fargo has some investment in this as well?
I believe they do, yes.
Donald, do you remember the amount we put in this one?
No, sir, I don't. Anybody know that one? Okay.
Somebody giving their hands on? I thought it was, wasn't it $500,000? Okay,
didn't
we
have
put
that
some money into it, that's all I know.
Tough question.
Subdivisions aren't involved in that part, so
Okay,
I don't do that part.
here comes somebody who might know this.
Hi, good evening, Commissioners. I don't know the amount on it because it wasn't HUD funds, but it had originally applied for HUD funds, and that is the amount that's no longer part of that activity because of environmental reasons. That HUD just doesn't allow that, but there are other ARPA funds, I think, that went into it, which Nicole Crutchfield could speak to. If you had some questions, just email her.
Okay, I just wanted to know, I know we invested in this one to get more low-income housing in the community, so thank you. We did the public hearing, did it go through that? Anybody in the public want to speak? No, and I have a motion, right, John? Strand, Preston? Yes, okay, now I'm ready, roll call vote.
Strand?
Yes.
Preston?
Aye.
Colpack? Aye. Pepcorn?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Public hearing to continue to 10/16/23, item 38, we'll move to 10/16/23, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Colpack?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Number 39, Consolidation Annual Performance and Evaluation Report, CAPR, for the 2022 Action Plan for Community Development Block Grant and Home Programs. Now you're up here, thank you.
I'm back, yeah. Good evening, once again, Mayor, Commissioners, citizens. This is for item 39. It's a public hearing only, so no action will be required. This hearing is for the 2022 year-end report for the city's HUD programs, CDBG and Home, which I was just previously talking about a little bit. The program year runs from April 1st to May 31st, which is why our year-end report seems kind of late in the year. For a normal year, that's perfectly normal for the HUD program year. I don't have a presentation on this item. Today is the last day of a 15-day public comment period. The report has been made available online throughout the comment period. We have not received any comments to date. In summary, we spent over $2.6 million in HUD funds in the last 12 months on homelessness, housing, and core neighborhood improvements with our community partners. And that's all outlined in detail in the CAPR report, which is still available online and it will be on there permanently as well. Again, there's no action required on this item. This is just an opportunity to hear public comment. We will be submitting this year-end report to HUD sometime next week.
Well, good, then we can take an opportunity to thank you for all your hard work in the city of Fargo, all well you've done to serve us. And I think for my commissioners, we can give you a round of applause for that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You did excellent work in your area in planning, and I think you deserve to be recognized. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Item 40, Public Health Downtown Services Update. It's going to be Commissioner Preston and Denise, or Desi Fleming's going to give the report.
Sure. This is just an attempt to update everybody on what's going on downtown. And yeah, I'll let Desi and Chandler take it from here.
Yeah, actually, we're going to do a little bit of tag teaming tonight, so it'll be Chandler and I as well as the chief. So good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. We wanted to speak tonight specifically to provide some history, background, and current status of some of the programs available through our harm reduction division, along with efforts that Fargo Cass Public Health and the Fargo PD are participating in to address increasing needs within our community. We would be happy to answer any questions from the commission pertaining to this content at the end of the program, if that works. Just to let you know, since 2014, the Harm Reduction Division has evolved with additional programming to support our community with people experiencing housing instability, trauma, addiction, behavioral health challenges, and difficulty in meeting basic needs. The first program within harm reduction was the Gladys Ray Shelter, which was opened as a direct result of the plan Going Home, a 10-year plan to end long-term homelessness in Fargo. That was published in 2006. The intent was to create a low-barrier shelter to serve the most vulnerable in our community. The Gladys Ray is the only low-barrier shelter currently in our area. Shelter operations actually started under the planning department and then were transitioned to Fargo Cass Public Health in 2014. All of the subsequent programming within harm reduction has been added incrementally to address any unmet needs or challenges within our community. And all of our programs are meant to meet people where they're at, reducing barriers and providing choices and opportunities to decrease personal risk. Currently, we're seeing increased numbers of individuals experiencing homelessness in our community. With the downtown area, given its walkability, given its public spaces, we're seeing the most impact there. Chandler and the chief will speak to this more throughout the presentation. I thought it would be helpful to give a historical perspective that shows the progression of how we arrived at our current services in downtown, specifically the Downtown Engagement Center. In 2018, the City Commission adopted the Downtown in Focus plan. This slide is actually a page from that plan. Through extensive community input, the plan identified 7 goals and strategies. Goal number 4 was to be a model for inclusive growth and development. And one of the action steps under this goal was to make a space for the most vulnerable 24 hours a day through the development of a day center close to other services. The Downtown in Focus plan identified an issue that no private or public spaces were available, allowing vulnerable people to be safely somewhere during the day when the shelters were closed. So in 2018, it was estimated there were potentially 900 people at any given time that wouldn't have a place to be during those daytime hours. The plan further identified that access to outreach services was challenging and not consistently available to those with limited resources. This plan described a concept of a space for people experiencing that housing instability to engage with various service providers and set up sort of a one-stop shop place where people could come and engage with those services. And this was to be pursued for the downtown area based on the identified need. Prior to 2020, the planning department, along with Fargo Cass Public Health and city administration, were looking at various sites for this operation to be set up. We were exploring new construction. We were also exploring converting various buildings at that time. Just to give you a little evolution of where we've come from with our services, this just kind of lays out the progression of our efforts and how COVID obviously impacted those efforts and put a crink in some of them. During the start of the pandemic, we did participate with the state. The state was coordinating quarantine and isolation efforts for those who had no place to be, no housing options, and they had set up a location at the Delta Hotel. We did that effort for probably 6 months plus there, and the state then discontinued those efforts and requested that we have local control of all of those efforts going forward. The area shelters did not have means for, individual rooms. They were trying to reduce guest numbers just for social distancing purposes, for lack of staffing purposes. And so the city of Fargo kind of ended up being that lead coordinator among those 5 community shelters, as well as the harm reduction team took the lead for all of the quarantine and isolation efforts for the unhoused populations. Initially, we were trying to use hotels for this purpose, which was really challenging and inefficient with sites scattered across the metro. So the old Fargo PD building was identified as a single location where we could carry out that operation, and that was secured for that purpose. We were able to use Red River Valley Task Force funds as well as CARES dollars to set up the operation, to pay for any costs of that, to prepare and provide service at that building. The space was utilized for that purpose from March of 21 to March of 22. At that point, it was determined that mass Q&I services were no longer needed, so we did stand down the operation at that time. We still had, though, the need for the daytime drop-in center was still identified in that adopted downtown plan. And the Fargo PD building was identified as a space that could provide the amenities needed for that type of service. So in May of 2022, the Downtown Engagement Center opened to assist people in meeting their very basic needs, forming relationships, connecting them to services, and providing a safe space away from the elements. This location not only houses Fargo Cass Public Health Harm Reduction staff, but several community partner organizations, including Housing Navigation, Culturally Responsive Services, Mental and Behavioral Health, and Homeless Health. The DEC, as we would like to call it now, Downtown Engagement Center, started with hours of 8 to 8 in April, but due to budget constraints, we did decrease hours from 8 to 5. It started in May. We decreased hours in April due to budget constraints, which is where we're currently providing services in those hours. So I will now turn the presentation over to Chandler, who is our community liaison specialist with the Harm Reduction Division, and she's going to provide more service and statistic highlights.
Thank you, Desi, and good evening, commissioners. My name is Chandler Esslinger. Like Desi said, I am the community liaison for Fargo Cass Public Health and our Harm Reduction Division. Part of the reason why we wanted to present to all of you today is because since May, we have been partnering with the communications department on a series of videos about the harm reduction programs. And tonight we have a video on the Downtown Engagement Center for you. So we'll be playing that in just a minute, and then I'll be following up with a little bit more information about the Engagement Center and some national and local trends in data.
We're located at the Downtown Engagement Center, which we refer to as the DEC.
A day in the life at the Downtown Engagement Center is never the same. We provide basic services like showers, lockers, laundry. Lockers are a huge deal for our guests. In the winter, typically, our guests would have to get rid of some of their winter gear, some of their big coats and overalls. Now we can have lockers here where people can store their stuff in the summer and reuse it again in the winter. It also is huge because people can then go to interviews, they can go to appointments, they don't have to worry about their items getting stolen, and just focus on getting their things done.
We feel that the DEC is important for the community because it is a central place where people can come and try to connect to other services.
On site, we have a variety of different community partners who office out of here full time. And so really trying to meet people where they're at with the services that they need to just reduce the amount of barriers that they face in accessing those things.
The Downtown Engagement Center is busier than I ever expected it to be. Providing one single place where people can go to take care of the most basic of needs, especially when there isn't enough shelter beds to really really meet the need of everyone.
Part of why the engagement center is located downtown where it is because this is where the population we serve is. They were here first and we came to them. And I think the reality is if we weren't here, we serve about 83 guests per day. That would mean that they would need to find somewhere else to be. And so if we're trying to create an environment in downtown where everybody feels welcome and everybody has a place to be, it's really important for the engagement center to be here meeting the need of that specific population of people so that everybody has a place where they can exist and build community.
If it's hot outside, they can come in and cool off, use a restroom, have something to drink, maybe we have a snack. In the winter, we've had a ton of people coming in to try to stay warm and have a hot cup of coffee, maybe watch TV, and again, just doing that gives us the ability to build those relationships with people to try to get them connected to the services they need.
Relationship is very important because that's how, trust is established. You guys get to know each other, even sharing your culture, your background. The first day I started working here, there was a guy that, he had a language barrier and he was Liberian because I'm Liberian as well. So it was kind of hard for them to understand him, but I understood him and I was able to help him. Having cultural competence in a workplace is very important.
To me, engagement in what I do every day is just trying to build a relationship with somebody and getting to know who they are, what they need. When they open up and share intimate details of their life just so that we can get to know who they are and help them move on to what they're looking for, there are no words. And it's not about us feeling good, it's about them and seeing them change.
Chronic homelessness is defined as an individual who has a disability, who has been living unsheltered or somewhere not meant for human habitation for 12 consecutive months. Homelessness is often viewed as a choice, and I believe homelessness is a consequence of mental health, trauma, poor policymaking, barriers in the system. I don't think any one of our guests would ever choose to be homeless in their life.
A lot of us have taken for granted having the ability to have a stable place to grow up, having the car, going to college, having the jobs and all the things. I feel lucky that we didn't have traumas that some of the individuals that we work with have had that threw them off. It's not a pull it up by the bootstraps kind of thing. Everybody deals with something differently. Any kind of trauma, even if a mother dies or a child dies, whatever the trauma can be, everybody is going to deal with that differently because no one person is the same. So we have one individual, they were told that they have come up for housing and they cried. As we completed the application, they cried. And being a part of that, it's amazing.
Thank you. And a big shout out to all the staff who are here today who participated in the video and who work really hard to serve this population every single day of the week. So in the video, I mentioned that at the time we were serving on average 83 guests per day. In the month of July, we've actually seen an increase. We serve about 110 guests per day at the Downtown Engagement Center and actually had the highest number of individuals coming through our doors in July with 146 people coming in to seek any type of service that they needed. Again, the Downtown Engagement Center exists where it does because we need to meet people where they're at. People experiencing homelessness and poverty have been living and existing in downtown long before the Downtown Engagement Center came to be. It's the most walkable part of our community. There's access to transportation. There's a variety of different services available there. And the people we serve like downtown for the same reasons you and I do. It's where I find community. It's a fun and exciting place to be. And so people are just trying to be somewhere where they feel comfortable. It's a daytime drop-in center away from the elements. I don't have to tell everybody here how cold it gets in North Dakota, and people need a place to be away from the elements, whether that's heat or cold, in order to get those basic needs met. We're really proud to offer things like lockers, showers, and laundry services so that people can get those immediate needs met in a safe and welcoming environment. People need to feel like they belong to the places that they're trying to access and that they're welcome there. And so we try to really have, again, low barrier services where people can come in and get those needs met. We have the harm reduction vending machine, which we mentioned, where people can come in and get access to some of those additional supports that they might need to make sure that they're protecting themselves and their community members if they're engaging in any type of risky behavior. It's a place where we can build social connectedness and promote positive relationships. Relationship building is a huge part of engaging with the homelessness population. We know that a lot of the people we serve have been harmed by the systems in our community and elsewhere. So being that consistent, predictable presence in their lives and ensuring that they can come into our doors and again feel welcome there is a really important part of building that community that hopefully then gets people out of the situation that they're in. Everybody who offices out of the engagement center, whether they're there every day or they come in to do outreach, have been vetted by our program as a trusted community resource. So whenever somebody is ready to take that next step, whether that's engaging with care coordination or working with a homeless navigation caseworker, they're there to help people meet that need. So now we're going to transition to talking a little bit about some national trends in homelessness, just to contextualize what we're seeing here in our community, and then I'll talk a little bit more about our local data. So from 2007 to 2016, homelessness had actually been declining across the nation by about 17%, but it has been on the rise again since 2017 at a rate of about 6%. Most recently, the federal government released their all-in strategic report on ending homelessness. And for the first time since data collection began on homelessness, more individuals are experiencing unsheltered homelessness than sheltered homelessness, meaning that they are not staying in a shelter in the community. They are living outdoors. Although rates of homelessness for people with mental health conditions and or substance use disorders are high, the majority of people experiencing homelessness do not have a mental health condition or substance use disorder. So really important to be aware of some of the stigmatizing ways that we might talk about homelessness. 62% of people experiencing chronic homelessness are living unsheltered, and chronic homelessness is again defined as an individual with a disability who has experienced that repeated or long-term instance of homelessness, and that's in comparison with 50% of the general homeless population experiencing unsheltered homelessness. So it increases the more vulnerable you are in the homeless system. And then it feels really important to call out, given where we're physically located in our community, that due to generational impacts of Native American genocide, boarding schools, and systemic racism, Indigenous people are up to 5 times more likely than the general population to experience homelessness. And that's really a reflection of us and our need to adapt our system to meet that need. So some local data on homelessness. What feels really important for all of you to know today, especially when it comes to unsheltered homelessness, is that the availability of shelter beds in the Fargo-Moorhead area nightly is insufficient for the number of people who are seeking shelter. We recently did a study on all of the available emergency shelter beds in the Fargo-Moorhead area and found that there are about 330 beds available, depending on family size, on any given night. And it's cut off a little bit there, but currently, in the month of July, we have 340 people trying to access emergency shelter. So systems are already trying to serve overflow capacity, which is something we typically don't see until wintertime. So this is also, again, a symptom of what we're seeing in our community is just that lack of available shelter. So individuals who are considered chronically homeless typically need more resources, they're more vulnerable, and they have significantly higher barriers due to the complexities of being homeless for a long period of time leads to, and rates of chronic homelessness continuing to increase year after year in our community. You can see that graph there from the FM Homeless Coalition. This data is from the last State of Homelessness report. They are set to release their new State of Homelessness report next month, and we'll update you all with that information when it becomes available. And again, just to highlight some of the racial disparities that we see in our community, There are a disproportionate number of BIPOC folks experiencing homelessness. 25% are Native American and about 27% are Black, which is an overrepresentation of their population levels in our general community. And about 17% of Indigenous people and 10% of Black people experiencing homelessness meet the requirements for chronic homelessness, which really says to us that BIPOC people are not moving out of homelessness as quickly as their white counterparts are. This is also some information that comes from Presentation Partners in Housing and their prevention and diversion team. This is data from their housing crisis line, which is a partnership with FirstLink. And what they do is assess and triage households at imminent risk of homelessness, meaning that they are at risk of homelessness within the next 2 weeks. On the left here, you can see data from last year and then current data. There's been a 65.87% increase in the number of unique households calling the crisis line and self-identifying as homeless. We also see that there's trending increases for the number of people who have reported staying in an emergency shelter or place not meant for human habitation in the past 12 months, who have reported staying in an emergency shelter or place not meant for human habitation in their lifetime, and reported experiencing homelessness 2 or more times in the past 5 years. So what this tells us is that people in our community are experiencing a level of economic precarity that puts them at risk of homelessness. Might not be somebody that we know is experiencing homelessness right now, but a lot of families and a lot of households are kind of on the cliff of experiencing homelessness. And so if we're already seeing these trends in terms of shelters being over capacity, different things like that, this data is really important for us to consider, especially as we think about availability of low-income housing and some of the other things that came out of the MetroCog housing report. So it's not all doom and gloom. All of our harm reduction programs are designed to get us closer to ending homelessness. And we are not the only organization that has a role to play. It really takes a community-wide effort. And we have lots of incredible organizations in our community that are doing just that. However, we know from communities that have ended homelessness for certain populations that there are some best practices we can follow and implement in our community. And so we hope that we will be able to adopt a community-wide strategy for ending homelessness using some of those best practices like Build for Zero, and really starting with that chronic homeless population, who again is really the most vulnerable and the most likely to die on the street. We're also working on implementing an emergency overflow warming center in downtown to meet that need of unsheltered community members, make sure they're staying safe overnight, especially when we have that life-threatening winter weather. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Chief Cebulski to provide a few updates from the Fargo PD about their response as well.
Thanks, ladies. We just wanted to let you know what kind of partnerships the police department has going on with these issues as well. We deal with homelessness and also mental health, and sometimes they are combined and sometimes they are separate. So just to reemphasize that homelessness alone is not a crime, and we certainly can't arrest people for that. We do have a lot of mental health issues that we are dealing with, and so far year to date, we've taken 1,038 calls that are specifically mental health related calls. And of those, 21% are 15 individuals that we've identified with some pretty significant mental health issues. And we've been partnering with a lot of our facilities in town, Southeast, and other mental health facilities to try and address those issues. But as I think Chandler mentioned, a lot of the homeless folks aren't necessarily mental health. In some cases they are, but we've also tracking our calls for service downtown. And for the month of June, we've got 6 individuals who are homeless that accounted for 104 calls for service. So again, that I think continual whirlwind of they don't have any place to go, and we're getting sent to these calls and try and deal with them and work with harm reduction and public health to address some of those issues. We also are dealing with the jail situation and the inability in many instances to get persons admitted to the jail because of their population. As we know, it'll be at least 2 more years before that addition is added to the county jail, so that's a pretty regular struggle for us as well. And I think sometimes folks in the downtown area get a little bit irritated with our officers who are unable to make an arrest even in a situation where we could make an arrest simply because the jail has no room and won't take the person. We've got a lot of complex mental health and substance abuse issues, again, that we work with harm reduction. And so we are exchanging information with them and our other partners on who some of these folks are who need these services in the hopes that they can try and intervene and curb some of that activity. Our detox facility, again, this is a staffing issue as well, has been closed every weekend in August so far because they're unable to staff it. And so we struggle there as well in terms of folks that come to our attention for detox and where we can take them. Often the jail is full as well. We know the shelter space is full. We have increased our presence exponentially downtown by expanding our community engagement team, and you'll see many of them out there. We've continue to enhance our patrols on the weekend bar closings, kind of in concert with this, not necessarily a homeless or mental health issue, but again, just in terms of downtown presence. We've got a great relationship with Southeast, trying to work with some of these chronically mental ill people and the DEC staff. We continue to work with the downtown business community. Again, where we can take enforcement action, we do. A lot of these issues, very few of them, are we able to take law enforcement action on it. So I think it's just important for everyone to recognize that. When we can, we do. But many of these are not that. So we're continuing to focus on behaviors and work with all of these partners to try and keep downtown safe and address some of these other social issues. That's all I have.
Thank you, Chief. Harm reduction staff's doing a great job, and I'm glad they're working cooperatively with the police force to have things happen. Chandler, the other thing I think that was reported by Jan is that we have found housing for 44 clients at this point. You are finding housing for people, and we're putting them into housing. And I think the other thing the public has to know is that you're trying to move away from crisis intervention to what's the plan and what are we going to do. We are hampered by the jail being full frequently. The chief told me this weekend there were 9 people that should have gone to jail that they just didn't have space, and that your team works really hard with the police force to manage clients in a proper fashion. But I think as a commission, we have to thank everybody for their hard work. They've been doing a great job. Desi, is this the end of the report? Yep. Commissioners, do you have any questions? Commissioner Pepcorn.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, so can you go back to the first slide? So it listed all the different programs, if you can pull that up. And I guess my question is, how much does that cost, and who's paying for it? To give you an example, the Downtown Engagement Center, obviously during COVID, that was helped with state funding. That funding has since gone away. So I'd be interested to know how much all this costs.
Well, a lot of the programming under the harm reduction, so the mobile outreach program is fully funded by the state health department through their Department of Health and Human Services. The harm reduction centers for services, that's almost 100% funded by the Department of Human Services, State Health Department. So the Downtown Engagement Center, we did have some HUD funds that supports that as well. So the city would be paying for some of that staffing portion of that. Much of our staffing, as we have said, kind of goes across the various divisions. So the city would be covering staffing at the Gladys Ray, withdrawal management, and then with the Downtown Engagement Center staff.
Thank you. So anyway, Mr. Chair, in your budget, I'd like to see the actual numbers of what this costs, because obviously you're proposing raising, our utility taxes and property taxes. And I think the average person wants to know, can we afford to keep doing all this stuff? And I just want to talk about one experience. I called our city administrator August 12th. There was a person living in the emergency exit in the Civic Memorial Auditorium, and no action was taken. And I guess from the fire chief's perspective, that's obviously a fire code violation, and it's 200 yards from here. So I would encourage people to walk by the entrance to the Civic Center, the Sky Commons. There's a group of people there on a daily basis, and now our city staff has to, actually they were doing it this morning, they have to pressure wash it because of human waste, and so they have to wash it out every day. And so my question is to the city of Fargo, obviously not to the people sitting here, but the citizens of Fargo, is this what you want the city of Fargo to be? Is this Is this acceptable to you, what's going on? I would encourage you to drive down 4th Street, right across, right along the Civic Auditorium. There's people there. And so I would encourage you to see it. I guess that is my question. How can you let somebody sleep and set up a housing in an emergency exit for the Civic Memorial Auditorium? Isn't that a fire code violation? It's an emergency exit. So to me, that's, and that no action was taken, that speaks volumes to me about the basic philosophy of our current leadership. And so to me, if this citizens of Fargo, this is what you want, I think we know what it's going to lead to. And so it's just, but if this is what you want, but the best part is.
Commissioner Pepcorn, I'd like you to offer what action item you'd like. We're a humanitarian group of people, take care of people. We take care of many people in our community. And you have been out there saying you're going to take care of it. So are you going to arrest people? What are you going to do? What is your solution to the problem we have here? We've just presented an excellent program in which we're dealing with this issue in a very fair and humanitarian way. We're trying to help people that are having issues in our community. We have a dedicated team of people doing that. What would you suggest? Because I'd really like to know what your action item is.
These are all wonderful things, but if you can't afford them, then you can't keep doing them. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Preston.
Yeah. So I would like to just remind the analysis of the costs of the program weighed against what costs are inflicted upon society, whether it be emergency rooms, the jail. There's multiple other kinds of cost impacts. So trying to deal with the issue up front and trying to do, hopefully have a long-term kind of approach to this where people are actually housed and are stabilized in the long run is going to cost less. So the whole issue of cost needs to include that consideration. If I could just add one more comment. I am just thrilled to see the collaboration that's happening here between law enforcement and public health and the community members as well. So congratulations on everything that you've done to this point, and keep it up. It's great.
I would also just like to add in response to Commissioner Pepcorn's comments. So even though you are not seeing things, there is outreach happening. Our teams are out there a lot talking with people who are in the Civic Plaza, trying to do outreach, trying to get them to a shelter, offering assistance, and trying to make, the point is that you have to have someone who is able at that point to make a change, and sometimes they're not. So you keep going back and you try. But what we're seeing is a reflection of our growing community, and we're seeing that nationwide. So I know Jan has also spent numerous times talking to the guests at the deck about the importance of being a good neighbor. She did that when the Gladys Ray opened as well, about, if you need to be around, talking about behaviors, talking about picking up after yourselves, all of those things that help. The bottom line is the people have no home to go to. And so it's very difficult to move people along from public spaces when they have no home. We have homes. We are very fortunate, and we know that. Not everyone is.
And your engagement team has reached out to this lady that we see out there that she's just refusing to work with us, but we continue to try to work with her, as I understand.
People have mental health challenges. They have different things going on, and we have to recognize that. That's the meeting people where they're at. It's the same as the addiction services. I mean, someone may not be able to just stop cold turkey using a substance. That's why harm reduction works. It's meeting people where they're at, making small wins where you can, and kind of working with them in what works for their personal self. We can't say what works best for other people. We can say what works best for us.
And you and I'd also have to agree, the original budget for us was 2.7 million, and that was cut. So we made considerable cuts, and the staff's hours went from 8 to 8 to 8 to 5, and the staff still is doing an outstanding job of meeting the people where they're at and trying to provide their services. One of the things commissioners have to know, we'd have 140 people on the street right now if we didn't provide those services. Commissioner Kolpak.
Yeah, thank you for the updates. It certainly has become a very complex problem, not just in Fargo, a growing community, but across the country. And so I too echo the thanks for the collaboration between departments. I can tell you, just observing daily, that this has become a priority issue and it's beyond the departments presenting today. It includes Public Works, it includes Fire, it includes a number of departments, and so I appreciate it continuing to be a priority. I also really encourage us as we look for the longer term solutions here. How are we working with our area cities and counties? This is a regional problem. It's not just Fargo's responsibility, and we really are caring for this problem in Fargo. So that is a conversation I know Mayor and I have had on a number of occasions, but how are we going to be reaching out to them for resources and support? And the last thing I'll share is as we make progress on this issue, and it's going to take time, and we have made cuts. My understanding is we went from 2.7 to 1.3 in the budget for 2024 that addresses this problem. We need to continue to communicate with the public the actionable steps we're taking and the progress we're making on an ongoing basis so they understand it is very actionable. So, thank you.
Mr. Strand.
Certainly. I can't think of a topic that makes my heart heavier than these human beings that struggle. And they're people that are family members. They're real human beings. They've got brothers and sisters, moms and dads. And we can't treat them like numbers and statistics. You know, we can't kick this can down the road. They're people. You know, and I'm as heavy as this topic is, I'm equally as proud of our community. Could I just have a show of hands? How many people here work in harm reduction and public health? These are the folks delivering on a daily basis. Well, tireless service to others who have needs, and to make life easier for us who aren't in the trenches, delivering those services moment by moment by moment. I just can't imagine the jobs you do, and I can't imagine the struggles these folks face. You know, and we're in Fargo. We've had some litmus test turning tipping point moments in Fargo. One of them was in March of 1998, if I recall, when we had a Native American woman, Clovia White Lightning, was turned away from service in a blizzard. Next morning, they found her frozen to death. That was a turning point in Fargo. We've decided, I think our people delivering decided this will never happen in our community again. And we've been fortunate that we don't have as much of those deaths. Right now, we have this image of human beings with no place to go. We don't want them at the river, and we don't want them on the other side of town. We want them out of our, you know, where are they going to go? So the notion of a human being protecting their sanctity by putting up a cardboard box around their space in front of the Civic Center is a new problem. What that message tells me is we have human beings that are aching to find sanctuary and housing and a roof over their head. They're begging for it. Let's take a look at that image and see what it's communicating to us. Let's see what it tells us in our hearts. Let's see what we're going to be doing about it. And I have another image that rivals that should probably stimulate our brains collectively as well. Some years back, I'll never shake the image that the Fargo Forum published. I think the photographer was Dave Sampson. I think when there was this homeless person who froze to death at the front door of the bishop's home. So close to sanctuary, so close to protection, freezing to death at the front door. Is this what we want? Is this the answer? We're going to cut costs. We're not going to service them. They're too expensive to us. Then we'll be talking about who's going to do the funerals, I suppose. That'll be a different cost. You know, I'm so proud of our city. I'm so proud of the people delivering services. I'm so proud of the people that are just absolutely unconditional despite the pushback from those of us who are so utterly privileged. I'll stop, but we have work to do. We all have work to do. We all need to roll up our sleeves and participate and give this our best. And if we're not contributing our best, it's on us. And don't complain about those who are giving it and providing it and doing what they can. So thank you for the work you do. Thank you for the leadership you provide us, Chief Sobolski, Chandler, and Desi. Your folks are just heroes. I just don't have enough words to say how proud I am of you.
So just the public to know, this is something public health works on every day. Your team works on it hard all the time, anything that comes in. The commissioners and the mayor, we received a variety of emails this weekend of what we should do, and we meet weekly to try to figure out what can we do next, and we will continue to do that. The other thing for people to understand is you guys apply for grants all the time. We try to get as much funding as we can. We'd like to see the county and the city of West Fargo kick in as well, because we're taking care of many of their people, as well as the city of Moorhead. So we feel maybe other people should get involved in this item. Also, we have many groups out there, Chandler, you did refer to that. We have many groups that you are working with, and we hired you to help coordinate the care in our community, which you're doing a standing job getting people involved and getting other people involved. And Commissioner Strand's communication, we're very concerned about this winter, what we're going to do. When we saw a lot of frostbite injuries last year, we don't want to see those this year, so we're going to work to prevent that. So we'll continue to work on this. Desi, anything else you two want to speak to?
No, I think we're available, you know, if someone has questions or concerns and they want to shoot an email or contact the health department, we're happy to answer any questions.
Could you kindly just your presentation tonight, send it to all the commissioners so we have the facts and statistics? Would it be okay? Thank you very much. Nice job.
Thank you.
Item 42, governance meetings update. Commissioner Kolpak?
Yes, thank you. I asked to put this agenda item on with an informational piece in the packet about just information only, no decision, but I asked Administrator Michael Redlinger to give an update on the work that's been done over the last 9 months. We've had 6 4-hour sessions with all the commissioners there for the most part. Really good, vibrant discussion. We're looking at protocols around governance, eventually work and standardization around boards and commissions, including the addition of and maybe, you know, the expiring terms of commission members as community volunteers. And so that is the purpose of tonight's update.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Kolpak, Mayor, and Commissioners. I'll just add a couple of additional comments in addition to what the Commissioner just shared. Our next steps with Dr. Schatz is that we're going to be meeting with him very shortly to talk about the draft governance policies. The Commission last looked at this at the end of June, and so we'll work to schedule a meeting with Dr. Schatz. And then following the Commission's opportunity to review those draft governance policies, you'll be approving those at a future meeting. And so we'll be working on that, and then also be working on any additional changes that the Commission would like to see as it relates to committees, commissions, boards, as well as the onboarding handbook, that new commissioner handbook that we had talked about. We'll be working on that. And so our next step with Dr. Schatz for meeting number 7 is to really focus and hone in on the governance policies. And we're going to pull on a date for that. We are presently trying to get a date lined up. So sometime in the next 6 weeks, we anticipate that we'll be able to find a date for that. So be watching for your email, and we'll get a date with Dr. Schatz and get that agenda out in advance to the commissioners too. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I'll just, if I may,
Dr. Kolpak?
thank you, Administrator Redlinger. So the other idea of having the onboarding packet for new commissioners, because right now there's really no training, I mean, other than meeting every day with staff and learning the job, but there's no formal onboarding really for new commissioners. It's also intended to be a resource for future candidates for commission that'll really explain kind of what goes into preparing for and being a city commissioner. So I just add that comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner
I have a
Peppercorn.
question for Mike. So how much does each of those sessions cost? Do we have to pay Dr. Schatz?
Mayor, Commissioners, and Commissioner Pepcorn, I'd have to look at the exact itemization, but I want to say about $1,500 to $2,000
Thank
is the per meeting cost that Dr. Schatz is. We're under engagement with him just on a retainer basis. We pay by the meeting.
And so what's been accomplished so far?
I would say right now, as Commissioner Kolpak outlined earlier, we've had a number of agenda-setting meetings where we've talked about policies, and now I think with the adoption of this governance policy document, that's probably going to be the largest contribution of work that has come out of those sessions. And then following that, if the commission wants to continue to work with Dr. Schatz, I do anticipate he can certainly be available and assist you if you do want to get into boards and commission work. But I would say that governance policy document and all of your input as commissioners over the last year, approximately, not quite a year, has really been the kind of culmination of that work. So that'll be his primary work product.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So just to follow, he's gone on to Moorhead as well, and worked with a variety of different people to help come up with things. Jeff Schatz worked with the Diversion Authority and really helped us in our governance and to straighten that out. I think the gain we'll have as a commission is rules of how we work together and policy and governance, and it's something that we should look at always, is can we do it better? And sometimes to the public, is there a better way to be open and transparent to the public? So I think you're going to be very happy with the work when the commission gets done with it. Item 43, recommendation from Commissioner Strand to schedule a working session to discuss all aspects of and contemplated economic development and incentive policies. Commissioner Strand.
Mayor, I'd like to make the motion that we schedule and convene a working session of the full city commission to discuss all aspects of current and contemplated economic development incentive policies. I'll just start with the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
And then I might, a little discussion,
Commissioner Strand.
this topic of incentives is just a forever moving item. It's always changing and evolving. It's local and it's got connections to our neighbors and to the state and to the federal levels. We've had two new commissioners. Commissioner Preston appeared a couple of years ago and Commissioner Kolpak 3 years ago, Commissioner Kolpak 1 year ago. And when Commissioner Grinberg was here, we informally decided, well, let's do this every 2 years. Whenever there's a new commissioner, let's meet and informally talk through all of the incentives, all of the policies, all the history, the pros and the cons, what's there in place now and what's contemplated. And we haven't been doing that. And meanwhile, there's discussion in the community to evolve some of these policies, and the last people it'll get to is us. And that's just kind of not right order of way to do business. So I really encourage us to, and I encourage the public to engage with us. Tell us what you're thinking. Tell us what your thoughts are. What's your best advice? But we need to talk. We need to work through every single aspect of our policies and vet them, get an understanding of them. And if there's contemplated changes coming, that's where we do that work. And we don't do it without adequate preparation and planning and vetting. So my motion is we simply convene and work through the policies, and we'll see what comes from it. But we need to have this conversation.
So the economic development incentive policy is basically done out every 2 years. It happened in 1921, now it's 23. So what you're requesting is not unprecedented, it's just asking for that. Part of the difficulty is Commissioner Pepcorn's working with the team on it presently, trying to have policy in green space areas. So I think part of what you're asking, Commissioner Strand, is can we relook at that and see what we would like to do? I think also thing that's happened in regards to that is the variety of the developers out there are questioning where we should go and what we should do. So what you're suggesting is basically the commission meet as a noon meeting or something and then go over what we presently have and what recommendations we have. Is that what I'd say?
Yes.
Okay. Further discussion. Commissioner Pipcorn, would that work with your committee?
I guess, Mayor, you're on the EDIC, and we're already working on this. Actually, we had a meeting today with HBA and a group of people, and so to me, it's going to cause some confusion, but if that's what you want to do, that's fine with me. But we are already working on this. We've already said everybody's welcome to our meetings. We have an excellent group on our EDIC, lots of very smart people, so I would encourage you to do that. You'll learn a lot when you're not talking, and so I would encourage you to attend our meetings.
Mr. Preston.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just say, I think this is a good example of how a policy that has pretty wide-ranging impact, that direction probably should come from the commission, not from within a committee. And the rationale, it seems to me, is there are other things going on that really should be considered when we even embark on a policy change like this. You mentioned green space incentives. The growth planning process, we are going through it right now. And I think all of us probably got a copy of the survey sent out by the consultants. A major part of that is how do incentives apply and or support whatever we end up deciding what our growth pattern should be. So if we do this prior to that, we could be jeopardizing, at least not providing the kind of support that we would need to actually implement a growth plan. So again, nothing against the Economic Development Incentives Committee. Yes, they're experts in economic development. They are not experts in seeing the broad impacts of a policy change like that. I think that needs to come from the commission.
Commissioner Pipcorn.
So, Mr. Chair, so I totally agree. The growth plan and the planning commission, we have to make sure that the EDIC and that we're all that was part of the discussion today. That's critical that we're all trying to do that, because the main thing that's changed is we now have a finite border. We've never had that in the past, and so that changes our perspective on our city growth. And so we have to be a lot more careful. And so I totally agree. We need to all make sure that we're on the same page. So however that works, I think Jim Gilmore, I don't know if he's here, but we're already making sure that we have these meetings together. And Commissioner Preston, you've been at the meetings where we talked about that. So I totally agree with that. We have to make sure that all the different entities are working together. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry for going on.
Oh, no, but it'd make it better because Commissioner Strand's comment the other time is changing policy, brought a project without the policy change. So we can all get involved and work on that. Roll call, please.
Strand?
Yes.
Preston?
Yes.
Kolpak? Aye. Pepcorn?
No.
Mahoney?
You have recommendations for appointments to the Human Rights Commission. You've added 4 people, Commissioner Strand. You're getting kind of aggressive here, aren't you, or what's going on?
Mayor, I'll make sure we're on the same page. Carolyn Beecraft and Barry Nelson their terms have ended, but Carolyn Beecraft will be continuing and be reappointed. On top of that, Xavier Welty, Richie Aboa, and Kristen Nelson, and Zoe Apsey. And I think some of you are here. Could you just raise your hands or stand? If you're here, stand if you would. Maybe all 4 of you are here. That's really terrific.
So, John, you want to make the motion?
I make the motion that we approve these 4 new members and also the reappointment of Carolyn Beecraft.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, Mr. Nelson's in the audience today, and I would like to also thank him for his many years of service to the Human Rights Commission, so thank you.
Thank you, Barry. Appreciate that. Roll call vote, please.
Strand?
Yes.
Kolpak?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, for item 39, Nancy's making me aware that the Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Period CAPR Action Plan for Community Development Block Grant. Was there anybody in public who wanted to comment to that, at what Tia presented? And want to speak to this? If not, I'll close that public hearing. Thank you. And we're going to have liaison assignments. I just have one request from the audience. Ryan Netterville did not know the rules that he had to tell us advance to do with public speaking, but he has something pertinent at this time, and if it's okay with the commission, I'd like to allow him to speak. We kind of talked about this maybe doing this public. So if you don't have objection, can I let Ryan speak for my side? Yeah. Ryan, if you want to take the speak.
This is Shane Netterville's headstone, and just before his memorial, it was destroyed, and it was by a county worker, Jeff Bear, and I think there's laws against that, he said, because they're signs. That's why he got to do it, because it's above ground. And I looked out there, there are many, many graves that stick up above the ground. And because it was made of wood, I think he had an issue with it. I was told by a board, human rights board, this last one, and Terry, to file a report. I did. I talked to the sergeant. I recorded all the conversations on my phone with them. They're not filing a report, they're noting it. And the police officer said, if anything, the Suxton Jeff Bear would get vandalism. If I did it, I'd get vandalism, desecration of a grave, all kinds of stuff, trespassing. He destroyed it. It's wrecked. It was on his plot. It wasn't on no one else's. But because of policy, I keep hearing about policy. My brother got killed because we didn't follow it. His policy, he wrecked and desecrated his grave. And why can't my brother be left alone? And I think he needs to reimburse this and add to the GoFundMe now. People have to start to get my brother a new headstone. He wrecked his memorial, and I find it very ironic he did it on the 4th of July. And Friday I found out. And Saturday I opened a trunk to someone's car to a very busted up piece of wood with Shane Netterville written on it. He wrecked it, and he tried making up for it for sticking those little plaques in a little cinder block at the foot of the grave, which in policy with them is supposed to be at the head of the grave. So now he's not following policy. But policy so far, I lost a brother. His grave is being messed with. And honestly, I'm getting really pissed about it because my heart hurts every day. Because there's something new like this. And I think something needs to be done, but the police said they're not going to file a report. I spoke to a sergeant too, and they're just going to note it. That's all they're doing. So I was under the impression if it's the other one that it can be brought up to you guys, but since he's just going to note it, nothing's going to happen. My brother has a wrecked grave. And I don't know what can be done about it, or if anybody can help me do something about it. Or yeah, he can pay for the new headstone because he wrecked it. Hundreds of people have been gathering money to help because we literally barely found out days before. And I had to slam it into the ground because he snapped the whole base off of it. And when I talked to him, he was rude, hung up on me, and told me, well, why don't you come mow your brother's grave? Because I said, it has to be flat because of mowing purposes. You can't weed whack. There's other stones around there you're gonna have to weed whack. And he hung up on me. And he's a county worker or works for the county. He would not tell me who. But then I come to find out he's an executive at Bolger, the ones that did Shane's funeral.
Ryan, we'll look into it, okay? Thank you for making us aware.
I appreciate it. And yeah, that's why I asked if I could speak, because it's already end of August, but this traumatized me and it hurt.
Yep. Thank you. Liaison reports, Commissioner Strand.
Thank you, Mayor. We had last week a public unfolding of the airport expansion project in a more formal way. And Fargo's airport's going to double in size in the next couple of years. We have a $124 million airport expansion coming, and we'll go up to 9 different terminal gates, which is just huge, the impact on our community and the vision that it takes. So look up the airport, see what the plans look like. There's just all kinds of aspects of it that are going to be for the people to pay attention to. And one of the other topics surfacing in the background is whether or not at some point they will add a parking garage to the airport, but I don't know that there's any way to not do that to address the needs. But that's really major stuff going on with the airport. We're going from 5 to 9 gates, just like that.
Mr. Kolpak, sorry.
Yep. I don't have any divisional updates today as liaison, but I do want to, I have a thank you I'd like to share for the finance team, Wyatt Pappenfuss and Emily Schultz. Today we had a preview of the audit from 2022, and each of us will be having individual meetings, and they really, the two of them really led that effort, and so during some tough times of changes in staffing. So I just wanted to say thank you.
And Ryan, Chief Zabowski said he'd look into it. He texted me while you gave your speech, so thanks, Chief, for taking that on. Mr. Preston.
Just update on the growth planning process. The consultant is going to be in town, or is in town probably already. We all have individual meetings, I believe, with them. So that's all I have.
Mr. Pepcorn. Move to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Everybody in favor, say aye.
I'll
Aye.
second it.
We're adjourned.